For the past 20 years, athletes from around the world have come to Hawaii to test themselves in an event known simply as the Ironman. The Ironman celebrates its 20th anniversary this year, and the time has come to reflect on the personalities that have shaped it, the rich moments that have defined it, and to see how one man's dream in 1978 has blossomed into a truly global sporting event. During 2 decades, the Ironman's landscape has been dotted with memorable moments that are inescapable and have served as the building blocks for the growth of this event. Julie Moss and the year 1982. 1989, the Iron War. The same year, Dick and Ricky Hoyt pushed the boundaries of courage. Even the very best have felt the Ironman's random touch. It was 1995. With 1,500 athletes on the start line every year and champions from around the globe, the Ironman has truly grown up in 20 years. But how did it get here? Here to give these images of amazing human struggle. The answer lies beneath the Hawaiian sun, in Honolulu to be exact, and a group of athletes trying to settle a bet. Who was the best? Athlete, the swimmer, biker, or runner? One man had the answer.
It struck me that if we took the Waikiki rough water swim, 2.4 miles, and then we did the around the island bicycle race, which was billed as 115 miles. I don't know that it was ever measured, but if we cut off about 3 miles, we would be at Aloha Tower, which is the beginning of the Honolulu Marathon. So I just proposed that we'll shoot the gun at 7 o'clock and you keep on keeping on, and whoever finishes first, we call him the Ironman.
So Collins and his 15 pioneers headed out on an adventure we now call the Ironman. Gordon Hallow was the first winner. 12 men finished, which was enough for Collins to do it all again in Honolulu in 1979.
We had 35, 38 people who showed up on Saturday. But the way they did it, they said, let's go to Hawaii and I'll do this triathlon thing on Saturday, and then Sunday we'll fly to Maui and play golf or whatever. And so when we put it off till Sunday, half the field decided, no, we can't do it today. We have to go to Maui today.
With the race postponed, Collins again started with 15 contestants. But there was one very big difference from 1978. The Ironman was no longer exclusively a men's club.
So I had some idea of what I could do for a marathon, and I added some, of course, for being tired. And I knew I had some idea of what I could do on the bike. And the swim, the only thing I was worried about the swim was maybe getting eaten by a fish, and then somebody said, well, there's no fish in Waikiki. You don't have to worry about that.
Remarkably, Lemaire not only survived the swim, she gave the men all they wanted on the bike and the run.
Apparently I had taken the lead, or was close to taking the lead, and that was picked up on the news. So when we changed and went on to the Honolulu Marathon course, people were coming out of their houses and going, there's the woman, there's the woman.
In the end, Lemaire finished 5th, but in the process blazed a trail for women to race side by side with men at the Ironman for the years to come. This ESPN special, the 20th anniversary of the Ironman Triathlon World Championship, is brought to you by Bally Total Fitness, North America's #1 health club chain. It's just before dawn and the 1980 Ironman Triathlon is about to get underway. This video was shot by ABC Sports, who had learned of the Ironman competition from a magazine article, and they'd called Commander Collins. They asked if they could televise his race.
And they said, we're going to have equipment out there for this Aloha Bowl, and if we leave the equipment and send people back, can we film the event? And I said, well, sure. I don't think you want to, but come ahead. It's like watching a lawn growing contest. You know, it's all over the island. It goes on all day and all night. You can't make it interesting.
Despite Colin's reservations, ABC came anyway and shot this first ever Ironman video as 103 contestants entered the water in Honolulu in the third annual Ironman competition. ABC's host was Jim Lampley.
2.4 miles of ocean swimming, 112 miles of cross-country bicycle racing, 26.2 miles of running, the marathon.
In the field was a former college swimmer named Dave Scott.
My first reaction was, well, it's got to be an event that's over 3 days. They can't do these things back to back. It's got to be, it's got to be 3 days. And then he said, no, it's 1 day. And I said, wow, really? I said, people survived this thing. You know, the first year in '78, they had 12 people. And, you know, I think just because of the nature of how I like to exercise, I thought, wow, what a challenge. This is unbelievable.
Unbelievable, perhaps, but Dave Scott took to the Ironman immediately, leading out of the water by a wide margin. Next was a quick rinse in the public shower, and onward to get ready for the 112-mile bike ride.
He's gonna win! He's gonna finish one!
Scott's support team included his parents. They would follow him the entire day.
How are your legs?
We'll find out in a few minutes.
Already 4 minutes up on the field, Scott raced out of Honolulu aboard his 10-speed bike. Nearly half an hour later, the first woman came ashore, Robin Beck, a registered nurse from Salt Lake City. A quick kiss from her husband, and she too was on her way. Dave Scott's fashionable knee socks belie a man on a mission. With no aid stations available, Scott's parents were always close by.
They were in the car, and we kind of anticipated when I would need food. And, you know, the exchange was just out the windows, so I just kind of go like this. They were behind me the whole time. I said, yeah, I need to tank up a little bit. I'm seeing buffalo running across the road here. Get up here.
Another unique aspect of the race, athletes were weighed, yes, weighed, during the competition to ensure they hadn't lost too much weight, jeopardizing their health.
Quick. Quick. Thank you. I don't feel that good. Well ahead of a record pace. Yeah, well, it was a little soft.
Soft or not, Dave Scott shattered the course record and won the first televised Ironman by over an hour. Millions watched on ABC Sports, and word of the Ironman spread. Almost 2 hours later, Robin Beck ran into Kapiolani Park, winning the women's division and leading a legion of age groupers who continued to finish throughout the night. Well, that's if they were lucky enough to realize they really had made it.
It's pitch black, and you're running along, and all of a sudden there's a wire hanging over the road with a light bulb, and there's a line in chalk drawn on the road. And I sort of stop for a second, and I hear this voice off to the right saying, "Hey, yeah, you in the race? Yeah, you're done. Oh, okay."
This was the last year the Ironman was held in Honolulu, its next home, the volcanic Big Island of Hawaii. It was a match made in heaven.
I've been visiting the Big Island of Hawaii for 15 years, and every time I come here, I find something new and unique to look at. We're staying at Kailua Bay right now, one of the most beautiful bays in the United States.
February 1982, and by now the Ironman had taken on a familiar look. ABC's television coverage had put the Ironman on the map, and the race was firmly entrenched in Kailua Kona on the Big Island. The 1981 race had been won by cycling legend John Howard, and on this day, 580 athletes plunged into the Pacific. Halfway through the 112 miles bike ride, 1980 champion Dave Scott found himself caught by an upstart Californian named Scott Tinley, who had finished third in his first trip to Kona the year before. The future Hall of Famers rode together to the Kona Surf Hotel, but early on the proud champion Scott knew a second Ironman title was not to be.
We actually rode in together. And throughout the run, I just said, "Ooh, this is a tough run." And it was really Scott's day that day, and I just said, "I'm grateful to be able to finish this 26 miles." And I said, "Second place is okay." But it's still, I hated to lose, and I said, "Golly, I'm going to come back and do this again."
For Scott Tinley, the day was spectacular, outrunning Dave Scott and winning his first Ironman title. For runner-up Scott, the seed to return and reclaim his title had been planted. But unknown to both these men, a story was unfolding out on the course that would change the face of the Ironman forever. It was in the women's race, and ABC was there.
Meanwhile, there had been a lead change among the women. 23-year-old Julie Moss, the former college student from Los Ojos, California, had moved ahead of Pat Hines.
Moss came to the Ironman as a college student, just trying to get a degree. No one could have imagined she'd find herself in the lead so late in the race.
Hey, you guys! Find out how far back she is for me.
The she Moss was asking about was Kathleen McCartney, who was in second place in the women's event, nearly 20 minutes behind Julie when the marathon began. As night fell in Kailua Kona, an exhausted Julie Moss was clearly in trouble. Quickly back on her feet, but again her body said no more. Moss would walk methodically down Ali'i Drive, now just a few hundred yards from the finish line. Just 30 yards from victory, Moss fights against a body that is shutting down. ABC's cameras captured this drama. As Moss struggled trying to balance as if on an earthquake, her worst fears were realised as Kathleen McCartney runs past her into first place, just yards from the finish. Unsure of her position and what had happened, McCartney had to be told she'd won by race volunteers at the finish. Moments later, Julie Moss crawled to the finish line in one of the most memorable moments in the history of ABC's Wide World of Sports. Millions of Americans watched mesmerised by Moss's courage and determination. Everyone who saw it was moved, and history has shown us that from that day forward, the Ironman would never be the same.
Obviously, an incredibly dramatic and emotional finish. And I was actually having a private sob moment on my couch, thinking that was both incredible and absolutely nuts. But a couple weeks later, I thought, you know what? I think I'm going to go do that race just one time. And so in 1982, I got some shoes, I got a bike, I had the swim goggles and the swimsuit, and I started training.
When the contestants finish the 2.4-mile ocean swim, they will come to this, which is perhaps today the world's largest bike parking lot. And then they will begin the second leg of the triathlon, the 112-mile bike race.
By 1984, several patterns had emerged at the ever-expanding Ironman. Kailua Kona was now the permanent home of the Ironman family, and Dave Scott was the head of the household. He had won the October 1982 event and also in '83, and as athletes started this day, everyone thought it was his race to lose once again. Well, nearly everyone. Inspired by Julie Moss's courage, a certain Mark Allen came to Hawaii prepared to take on Dave Scott and the sport's elite. He took the lead 30 miles into the bike leg and never looked back.
I was very strong on the bike that year. I got off the bike with whatever, 11 or 12 minute lead, and I thought, you know what, there's no way in the world anybody is going to make up whatever, 20, 30 seconds a mile on me, because my run was generally the strong point.
Allen's lead was still 11 minutes over Scott as he made his way through Kona and the steep climb out of town.
At the bottom of the hill, literally, I thought, I've got this thing in the bag. And when I got to the top of that hill, less than a mile later, I felt like every ounce of energy had just been sucked out of my body.
Now the leader, Mark Allen, and he looks, Marty, as if he is struggling.
I think his face says it. Really, he looks scared.
And David Scott, the defending champion in second place, is stalking Mark Allen now. And indeed is going to pass him as Mark Allen has slowed to a walk. We have a new leader, Dave Scott.
Indeed, as ABC's Jack Whittaker called it, Dave Scott would not only take the lead, but go on to win his 4th Ironman title and begin one of the great rivalries between Scott and Allen that the Ironman would ever know. In the women's race, it was Sylviane Puntus who dominated her 2nd straight Ironman title, shattering the existing women's course record. Making it a family affair, the Canadian's identical twin sister Patricia was runner-up. After taking 1985 off, the twins came back in 1986 to dominate the Ironman game once again. The Puntus plan was working late in the bike leg as Sylviane and her sister Patricia rode together as they always did on the Queen K Highway. But in one fleeting moment, the complexion of the Ironman would change forever as a young woman from Zimbabwe named Paula Newby Fraser bolted past both Puntus twins and ultimately into the lead. Then the race took a strange twist.
During the race, I had heard somebody had said to me from the sidelines, "Don't worry, one of the Punto sisters is disqualified." But that means nothing because there's 2 of them and I had no idea which one it was.
Unaware of any rules violation, the Puntus twins quickly caught Newby Fraser and appeared headed for another 1-2 finish. This time it was Patricia who would pull away from her sister and take the lead. But thoughts of a Canadian sweep were gone when a resilient Newby Fraser got off the deck and passed Sylviane Puntus to move back into 2nd place late in the marathon. In only a 2nd trip to Kona, Newby Fraser was giving us a sneak preview of the Ironman greatness that would follow. Just minutes ahead in town, Patricia Puntus was greeted with the cheers of a champion as she made her way to her 1st Ironman title, a title her sister had won twice before. It was a storybook finish. For Paula Newby Fraser, a remarkable 2nd place finish in only her 2nd trip to paradise. But Paula would only be runner-up for a few minutes as race officials informed Patricia Puntus she had been disqualified for drafting on her bike.
Somebody called me out and said, "We have an announcement to make," and they said that Patricia had been disqualified. I saw her crying, and they said that you are the champion, the 1986 champion, and I was sort of blown away. It was sort of like this gift that was handed to me.
But nothing will be handed to Paula next time when she returned to defend her controversial title. The deepest women's field in the history of the Ironman showed up to challenge her. Early on, the pace was set by a hard-charging mother of 3 named Jan Ripple, who set a torrid pace on the bike. Behind Ripple, the most celebrated triathlete in the world, Erin Baker, rode alone. She'd come to Kona to prove she was the best at every distance. Newby Fraser raced with the burden of self-doubt burning inside her. Was she good enough to cross the line first this year? And just behind her, Sylviane Puntus, here to win back the title. Her sister had lost the year before. As fate would have it, late in the race, Puntus and Newby Fraser would find themselves together, walking on the Queen K in the lead. But on this day, neither would triumph. The Kiwi Erin Baker ran past Paula into second place, leaving Newby Fraser walking on the Queen K in third.
I felt very broken after the 1987 race. That race, more than any other of my Ironman races, really haunted me. It haunted me, and that race turned my Ironman career around.
For Erin Baker, it was the culmination of a dominating year. She would win her first of 2 Ironman titles by the slimmest of margins, a minute and a half over Sylviane Puntus. And what of the early leader, Jan Ripple?
The muscular mother of 3 from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, had finally hit the wall.
Jan would finish in 14th place, but she did finish. Ripple's place in Ironman history was secure.
Hello again, everyone. I'm Al Michaels. Welcome to the Ironman Triathlon World Championship.
It's October 1989 and 1,300 athletes enter the Pacific Ocean and the Ironman, but none with more pressure than Mark Allen. After 6 failed attempts, Allen was still searching for his first Ironman win.
So when I came into the season in 1989, I kind of had this sense like, you know what, if it doesn't happen this time, I'm not sure if it's ever going to happen.
Right from the start of this race, Allen knew his only real competition was the man, Dave Scott, who had won 6 Ironman titles in the 80s and defeated Allen in every one of them. It was clear that Scott had Allen's number in Kona, and he relished the thought of defeating his more publicised rival in triathlon's biggest race. Scott and Allen left the water together, but history had taught Allen more than a few tough lessons about how hard it would be to take Scott's crown in a race that Dave had owned from the first time he came to Hawaii 9 years before.
Mark finally realized that he could not leave Dave's side all day, which is an imposing thought because this guy grinds people up for lunch. That's what he does. And Mark, that year, trained like a man possessed.
It was time for Allen to put that training to the ultimate test, taking on the man who had denied him before, a man who Allen had beaten in other races, but never here, not in this race.
When it came to October, I was always ready to race, and I think people recognized that I sort of built my year for that one event. It was sort of a do or die. You lay all your cards out, and if you do it, you're the hero, and if not, well, you just had a mediocre year.
Scott and Allen rode together for over 4.5 hours and hurried to the transition to begin a marathon that would rewrite all of the records. It was a furious pace right from the start.
We matched stride for stride. In fact, I'll never forget our pace going out. I felt brilliant. My legs just felt fabulous.
Side by side they went, 1 mile, 2 miles, 5 and then 10 with neither man giving an inch.
I just remember hearing the sound of our feet hitting the ground and the squish of the water that was coming out of our shoes and his breathing and my breathing. And it was like there was this communication or this sensing of what was going on inside of him, even though there was no words spoken.
That was Anna, Dave's wife. Guys, go.
With neither man giving in, Dave and Mark have driven each other to another plateau. They are once again averaging an incredible 6 minutes per mile. It is clear that Scott's 3-year-old Ironman record will be broken. The only question, who will break it?
Ice in your head.
I had really analyzed the course, and I saw that prior to the race there was one last long uphill before you drop into town for the final stretch to the finish. And somehow in my mind I just felt like, you know, if we're together at the bottom of this hill, I'm sprinting to the top. And sure enough, that's where everything happened.
2 miles to go. This is the final uphill on the course.
And I just remember this entourage developing of mopeds and cars, and this cocoon of vehicles surrounding these two, and you couldn't hear a pin drop. It was so quiet because it was like we're watching the ultimate race in the ultimate event on the biggest stage, and it was finally happening, and everybody there knew we were witnessing history.
It was the kind of history that had eluded Mark Allen 6 times. He had finally beaten Dave Scott in the race. The Ironman title was his, and Julie Moss, Allen's inspiration for competing in Kona, was on hand to share the moment. Along the way, Allen had broken the Ironman course record, and his 2 hours 40 marathon time is still the best ever seen in Hawaii. Less than a minute later, the proud warrior Dave Scott came to Ali'i Drive in 2nd place.
And I saw the finish line time as we were coming across, and you know, I was gravely disappointed in losing. I hated to lose, and I hated to lose to Mark, but you know, you can put all your excuses aside. On that day, for those 8 hours, he was this much better.
Out here in the lava fields, this is pure hell. I mean, mile after mile after mile, these bikers go on. There's nothing to look at except this. There's a couple of kinds of lava. This kind is called and it's about the sharpest stuff, sharper than Carl. It'll cut you to ribbons.
After winning the 1989 Iron War with Dave Scott, Mark Allen took control of the island and the Ironman and never looked back. He won an amazing 5 straight titles, while all the top contenders took their best shots. In each race, Allen gained strength as the race got tougher, and the brutal marathon course vanquished the competition. It was as if the door had been cracked open in 1989, and Allen took the opportunity to kick it in with a string of victories that will probably never be equalled. On the women's side, another rivalry had blossomed. Erin Baker, the 1987 Ironman champion, was going toe-to-toe each October with Paul and Newbie Fraser, who'd now won 3 titles of her own in the 80s.
It was a definite rivalry, and there was a definite coolness between us. You know, if I saw her, we were polite to one another. You know, sometimes I think she was a little impolite to me, you know, to the point of being a little rude, but it was just one of those real rivalries. I mean, it was a true rivalry. It wasn't just, you know, we got on the race course, raced each other, and were friends afterwards. You know, we weren't friends.
Each pushed the other to great performances in Hawaii. In 1990, the outspoken Baker was able to get away from Newbie Fraser on the bike, and then went on to run the fastest women's marathon ever in Hawaii, capturing her 2nd Ironman title. But Baker's win would be her last in Hawaii, as Newbie Fraser would come back and win in 1991 and again in 92. In the process, she would shatter the course record and become the only woman to go under 9 hours. Those wins set up her last showdown with Erin Baker in 93. Baker was returning from taking a year off to have a baby, and Newbie Fraser dominated in her absence. On this day, Paula would build a 7-minute lead over Baker to start the run, and she was never threatened. Newbie Fraser came into the race with an injured ankle and limited training, but in the end it was enough. The two would cross for the last time in the marathon, and Baker would settle for second, while Newby Fraser had won for the 6th time in Kona. And at the finish to greet her, Australian triathlete Greg Welch, who sat out the race with an injury. A year later, Welch was fit and one of the favourites, as Mark Allen had decided to take a year off from racing. That decision brought out another familiar face. Now 40 years old and 5 years removed from the Ironman, Dave Scott was back. The man who had made Hawaii his home in the 80s would make his first start since losing the Classic with Mark Allen in 1989. Looking like he'd never left the sport, Scott cruised through the pack, gaining confidence born only from a champion with every stroke of the pedals.
When I was able to catch the guys on the bike at about 18 miles, all of a sudden my confidence went to I'm fairly fit to, hey, I've got a chance to win this race. I am right there.
No truer words were ever spoken as Scott found himself just 20 seconds behind the leader, Greg Welch, as they headed out into the lava fields that Scott had always called home. Closing to within 11 seconds of the lead late in the marathon, Scott reached into his Ironman bag of tricks one more time and came up just short as Welch surged and Scott had no answer. Welch will become the first non-American man to win the Ironman, and rarely had there been a more popular champion. For Dave Scott, a magnificent second place at 40. The memories of '89 are ancient history now. The man was back where he belonged.
Hi, this is Jack Whitaker, and you have just seen the start of the Ironman Triathlon. It's being held on the Kona coast on the west side of the big island of Hawaii. The race started at 7 o'clock. It will end at midnight.
During 20 years, more than 10,000 have completed the Ironman in Hawaii, each having had their own reasons for taking part, all very personal and mostly compelling. Understanding that these amateurs are the heart and soul of this race, each year the Ironman television show focuses on a few individuals, bringing their stories home to the viewers. Perhaps the most memorable, the story of Dick and Ricky Hoyt. Dick from Boston and his 27-year-old son Ricky, who was born with cerebral palsy. Together they came to Hawaii to compete in the 1988 Ironman, but were unable to finish. The next year they were back, and Dick was more determined than ever to cross the finish line with his son Ricky. ABC followed Dick as he pulled, pushed and guided his son through the Hawaiian heat and the 140 miles that the Ironman tosses at everyone. It's a race that accepts no one lightly. The Hoyts arrived at the bike-to-run transition in plenty of time to continue. And throughout the night, Dick Hoyt kept moving with only one goal in mind: get Ricky home.
No sweat. Hey, we're glad you made it. You know? All right. Way to go.
When they reached the Leahy Drive, Dick sprinted to the finish and created one of the greatest moments in Ironman history. Their dream was complete. Ricky Hoyt was, in fact, an Ironman, and it was his dad who made it happen. Let's fast forward now to 1997 and meet Bob Jordan, an FBI agent on a mission. Like Hoyt, Bob Jordan and his family will be forever tied to the Ironman.
I've wanted to do the Ironman since 1985, and I've tried to qualify, and I've tried the lottery.
If I could do this pace at mile 19, got here at mile 9, that would feel great.
He didn't know what the right key was to unlock the lottery door.
The key for Bob Jordan was inside his San Diego home. It was his then 4-year-old daughter, Emily.
How do your legs feel?
I actually feel pretty good. Oh, I'm getting big hugs here.
Oh my gosh, even when you're sweaty.
And that was really what was going on till she was 4. When she was 4, she was diagnosed with leukemia.
Spending much of her time in a Californian hospital battling that leukemia, Emily never gave up on her dad's dream to compete in the Ironman.
They showed me a letter that she had written with my wife, in which she said something which just rang true.
My name is Emily. I'm 5 years old. My dad's name is Bob. He's a triathlete. Please pick him for the Ironman. I have trained with my dad every week since I was 3 weeks old, either sitting in the jogger or riding in the bike trailer. Now my little brother Timothy goes with Dad because I am in the hospital. My brother is 3 months old today. I'm having a bone marrow transplant to get rid of my leukemia. My dad's birthday is in 2 weeks, but I can't leave my isolation to get him a present. Maybe if I write a letter, you will pick him for the Ironman.
Jordan was picked and fulfilled their dreams last fall in Hawaii.
Here he comes. Here he comes. How you doing?
Good, good.
Yeah?
Feeling good.
Yeah?
Strong?
Have you been running the whole?
Hard to say. I don't
Sure
like
looks
to see.
it. Sure looks it. Okay. Love you.
Bob Jordan did arrive and finish the Ironman in just under 14 hours. He did it for himself and his daughter Emily, who died 5 months before this race.
I am an Ironman.
In a stone-lined pass like that, the cyclists are just fine. But when they emerge from that break, that's when the legendary winds of Hawaii kick in, gusting up near 60 miles per hour. There is no doubt that at the end of this day, as they battle it, they'll feel like they've gone a lot more than 112 miles, and our hats are off to them.
Fresh from a year off from Ironman racing, Mark Allen's unforgettable figure returned to Kona in 1995. Not far away on the pier that morning, Paula Newby-Fraser was preparing to chase her 5th straight Ironman title, and no one was betting against her. She was the undisputed queen of Kona, having won the race a record 7 times already. But the Ironman is anything but predictable, as both great champions would learn on this day. In the men's race, a German Ironman rookie named Thomas Hellriegel had blown away the field with a dazzling ride that saw his lead grow with every stroke of the pedals. 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Allen pumped away in a large chase back, but was wondering if so much could have changed in just a year. The 5-time champion watched as the lead grew to double digits. Was this any way for the grip to be treated in the Ironman?
Germany's Thomas Hellriegel doing his first ever Gatorade Ironman, leading off the bike.
Hellriegel's amazing ride gave him a 13-minute lead over Mark Allen and his pursuers. For Mark, he had rolled the dice, but would they come up a winner?
It was a gamble. It was probably the biggest risk I've ever taken over there. I thought, I know I'm going to have to run fast. I know there's some good runners with me. Just go with this easy pace on the bike, save it up, and then see if you can do it on the run.
It's 13 minutes since Hellriegel left, and Mark Allen, usually confident,
and in charge is finding what a difference a year makes. Unbelievably, the Germans with Leder and Müller are holding the top 4 places now. Champion Greg starting his favourite section. He trots with confidence. Behind him, the grip of Mark Allen. It seems to be relaxing. One thing's for sure, the run must be something very special from them both. For Thomas Hellriegel, this day had gone perfectly. Coming to Hawaii for the first time and leading the biggest race in the sport for over 7 hours. On any other day against anyone else, it would have been enough to win. But this day belonged to Mark Allen as he moved through the field to catch Thomas Hellriegel just 2 miles from the finish. It was the stuff legends were made of. This would be Mark's last Ironman race and was a fitting ending to a remarkable career. He would go out on top with a 6th Ironman title. Meanwhile, the women's race was being dominated once again by the great champion Newby Fraser. Her lead was 11 minutes.
Got off the bike, had this huge lead going, this is really easy. I mean, I remember actually thinking about going, this is so routine, it's ridiculous.
But what would happen during the marathon was anything but routine. Newby Fraser would begin to falter. Lacking the proper food and not able to gather herself, she was on a collision course with disaster. In second place, American Karen Smyers closed the gap on the struggling Newby Fraser. Smyers would run past a delirious Newby Fraser just 400 yards from the finish, claiming her first and only Ironman title. Paula was left on the side of the road where she stayed for 20 minutes before walking to the finish line in 4th place.
I went out there and just blew it all up, you know what I mean? I just completely blew myself up. And I look at that now and I'm just horrified. I'm embarrassed. I just go, how could I have sort of let myself get to that point? But I did.
From the lowest point in her career, Newby Fraser would come back, and in 1996 she would again reach the summit. She battled through a 3-minute drafting penalty, the defending champion Karen Smyers and the Swiss newcomer named Natasha Badman, who ran stride for stride with Paula until mile 23 of the marathon. She'd proven once and for all that she was the best the Ironman had ever seen. An unmatched 8 Ironman titles, a record that may never be equalled. This ESPN special, the 20th anniversary of the Ironman Triathlon World Championship, is brought to you by Bally Total Fitness, North America's #1 health club chain.
There is no such thing as a restful sleep the night before this race. And so, conceding victory to insomnia, they come to the Kailua Pier prematurely. After months and years of training, there is a need to complete the final items on a very long checklist.
For the past 20 years, triathletes from around the world have come to the Ironman chasing the same dream, to reach the magical finishing line on a Lily Drive. In the early days, all it took was enough courage to start and $5 in your wallet to give it a go. But since then, the Ironman has matured into a worldwide sports property, and just getting to the start line is quite an accomplishment. These athletes are literally the best of the very best. The Ironman's growth has spawned sold-out Ironman qualifying events and television coverage on ESPN. In all, more than 20,000 athletes will compete in Ironman qualifying races this year. If you're down under, your shot will come in the coastal town of Foster Tuncurry, where more than 1,000 athletes queue up for Hawaii qualifying spots and the chance to chase their Ironman dreams. If exotic locations suit your taste, the Ironman qualifying race in the Canary Islands off the coast of North Africa may be the one for you. But by all means, be careful. But nowhere is the Ironman more popular than in Germany. With 3,000 athletes competing and more than 100,000 spectators, it's the largest Hawaii qualifier in the world. The great demand for Ironman qualifying spots in Europe led to the establishment of a second Ironman qualifying race in the beautiful city of Zurich. The growth of the Ironman in Europe has produced some of the most dominant performers now racing in Oahu. In 1996, it was the Belgian Luc van Lierde who broke through and won the first Ironman title by a European, shattering Mark Allen's course record in the process. They all come to prove themselves in the ultimate event.
When all is said and done, the Ironman really has defined the sport of triathlon. People have really made their names and reputations at the Ironman races.
And for the thousands of age groupers who chase their dreams under Oahu's unrelenting heat, it has been and will always be a battle to conquer yourself. The island and everything the Ironman can throw at you. 20 years of great memories while the Ironman carved out its place in sport as the world's premier endurance event. Who can forget 300-pound former pro footballer Darryl Haley?
My philosophy was just do the best that I can all day. If I make the cutoffs, that's super. And if I don't, at least I know I've done the best that I can.
The Ironman is about being the best that you can. From 1978 to 1998, it's been a great journey. Each and every one has been a great champion.
I think there's a couple things that make that race so special. One of them is that it is not easy. You sacrifice a lot. You put a lot of effort into it to make it happen. And so just crossing that line in itself is complete gratification. So satisfying, and you feel cleansed, because you really challenged yourself. It doesn't matter if you're first or last. There was challenge in there, and you overcame that.